Always a pleasure to be joined by one of my favorite people to interview, UFC lightweight contender Beneil Dariush, who I'm sure is going to have his eyes peeled for tomorrow night's UFC 13 co-main event between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Fiziev. What's up, Beneil? How's it going?
It's going great. I'm pretty excited for tomorrow. I mean, not just the
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje and Fiziev fight, but the whole card in general. There's a lot of great fights, and actually last week there was a lot of good fights too. It's been the lightweights division has been really exciting lately.
There's always so much news and headlines surrounding that. And obviously, one of the big things about that co-main event tomorrow night is that Gaethje was supposed to fight Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker withdraws, and we get Rafael Fiziev. I have a feeling I know the answer to this question because I believe you are friends with Justin Gaethje. But was there any thought of potentially stepping in to fight him?
So they called me, and Ollie was like, "Hey, would you do it?" And first things first, my weight, because I was supposed to fight in January. My weight is pretty high right now, so to make 155 would be, I don't want to say impossible, but pretty damn near impossible. So that was the biggest issue, and the other issue is Justin is a friend. So if I was going to fight him, I would have to call him and be like, "Hey, we had talked about it. We would we would fight for the title, no problem. But this isn't this isn't for the title, so it would be a weird situation. I wasn't really, there really wasn't too many openings for the fight anyway. So I just I didn't even waste my energy thinking about it. I just kind of said no.
Are you surprised it ended up being Rafael Fiziev? Because I know a couple of people put their hands up. I believe a lot of the issues with people was weight. It ends up being Rafael Fiziev, who seems to obviously he successfully made weight. Were you surprised that it was him at the end?
I mean, yes, because my understanding was Justin was really looking to fight these other guys. I think he had eyes on rematches like Dustin Poirier or Max Holloway or and guys like that, basically. So for him to agree to that fight definitely surprised me. But if Fiziev is the only one that can actually make 55, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And that that's a credit to Fiziev for staying in shape and just being ready. I know he's been off for a long time, and it's not always like that where you expect guys to be in shape and ready to go. Sometimes it's complete opposite where they need a good 10 to 12 weeks before they can prepare.
Yeah, and obviously because that's been one of the narratives going into this fight, and obviously he seems like he's been training because if he can make 55 or 56, that means he's obviously been in the gym training. The first fight ended by majority decision for Justin Gaethje. It was a great fight. This time around, obviously circumstances are different. Fiziev is coming off of a long layoff. It is short notice for him while Gaethje has been in camp. But Fiziev is a favorite. He opened up as a favorite. I believe he still is a favorite right now. Does that surprise you?
It does actually. I'm not gonna lie. It does surprise me, and maybe they looked at Justin's last fight, and that's why they don't have him as a favorite. Maybe they think age is a factor, which doesn't really make sense. Here's what I'll say. I would actually favor Justin, and the reason why is the surgery. I would go towards that surgery and I would say, listen, I know this guy's been working PT, and I think PT can be really beneficial, and he's been, trying to come back, but he hasn't been able to kick the way he normally kicks for probably a year. He hasn't been able to do a lot of things he normally does for a long time. So I think the fight favors Justin in so many ways. So I'm surprised they have Rafael as a favorite.
Yeah, and two things that were interesting that both of them said in the lead up to the fight. So Justin Gaethje was like he felt like he was a little bit reserved in that fight, and the Michael Chandler. I don't know how he says that about the Michael Chandler fight,
Yeah.
but that's his violence standards are a little bit different than mine. And then Rafael Fiziev was talking about how he let the crowd reaction kind of make him sway away from the game plan. So when you hear Gaethje say, "I'm going to go back to the WSOF days," and you hear Fiziev kind of say a bit of an opposite thing, how do you expect this fight to play out?
If hmm, if Fiziev does stick to a game plan, and you know, I'm assuming his game plan would be to cut Justin off, focus on his hands, and set up the kicks. Basically, if that's if he does follow the game plan and Justin tries to go wild, you could potentially see Justin gassing out in round two and really struggling in round three. So uh, it's a weird fight because I think Rafael has more to gain and he's had more time to think about it because he lost to Justin, right? So because he lost, he's going to be able to make the better adjustments in my opinion. I would say I would say this fight is probably going to go to a decision again and I think what we're going to see that's really going to make the fight different is an active jab from Justin Gaethje because watching the last fight in the last round, Justin Gaethje when he started to really throw the jab, he was able to land so much, and I think if he could make that adjustment where he brings that jab earlier in the fight, it could be potentially very big for him. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. There's so many what ifs, and then we're gonna see the fight play out, and we're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's totally how it should have played out. I don't know. It's always hindsight is 2020, but this is one of those fights where I'm genuinely curious to see how it's gonna play out because I'm not sure.
And we're always going to ask the questions, Justin Gaethje going to wrestle? The same question I ask myself every single time he fights, but I think I know the answer to that one.
I mean, he did that one time.
Yeah, that's true.
He might do it again. And I know I went and trained with him in Colorado. He does a lot of wrestling practices. I was, we did a couple of wrestling practices and when you actually square up with him and you start wrestling, he has very good fundamental wrestling. He fakes, he snaps downs, he cuts the angle. Like these are college level stuff and he's still doing them. So I mean if he wanted to wrestle, he could definitely wrestle is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know for sure. But he's obviously, I mean, always delivering these banger type of fights and likes to stand and bang. So
Yeah.
your final prediction is Gaethje by decision?
I would say Gaethje by decision, but man, I would love to see it finish too. Anyways, but if I had to bet money on it as far as takedowns, I would bet that he wouldn't shoot. He's not going to shoot for the takedown. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about you. Obviously, you were supposed to fight at UFC 311 against Renato Moicano. Moicano gets pulled last second to fight Islam Makhachev. I believe you put your hand up as well to fight Islam Makhachev, correct?
Yeah, I made 55 for that reason. And I was a little bit disappointed because I was ranked ahead of Moicano. So I really thought I was going to get the opportunity, but they went with Moicano. It's all in the past. Dana said he was going to make it up to me, so I'm still waiting to see what that means, what I'm going to get, and um, nothing really has played out yet.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second. But seeing the way Moicano and Makhachev played out, I know you're not that guy, but did the competitor in you kind of be like, man, if I was in there instead?
I don't know if I should share this, but I remember texting Hunter and be like, man, this is such a mismatch. I'm telling you guys, give me this fight. And then he called me and we had a long talk about it. So whatever. But yes, the competitor in me was definitely struggling. I went to the fight with my wife and my youngest, but I remember just telling my wife, "Man, I don't even want to go. This is gonna suck." And I was like complaining the whole time. But then, the fight with Merab and Umar was so good, so that was definitely the worth going there to see that live. I was stoked on that fight.
Yeah, that was a very high level fight. That was a great one. And now Moicano loses to Islam Makhachev. Do you think about potentially rebooking that fight, or in a way, do you look at Moicano differently? Do you know what I'm trying to get at? Like, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I hear you. I mean, I I think they mentioned that about rebooking that fight, and you know I'm not against it because I'm not in a situation where I can be like, oh, I want to fight this guy, I want to fight that guy, coming off two losses. So if that's the fight they want to make, that's fine. I just figured when Dana said I'm gonna make, we're gonna make it up to Dariush, I figured it would be somebody ranked actually higher than me, not behind me. So whatever.
And yeah, because if we look at the lightweight rankings right now, I'm taking a look. Those who are ranked above you, Matteo Scamra, who you've recently beat, one of your better performances, Michael
Yeah.
Chandler, who's booked against Paddy Pimblett, Dan Hooker, who just withdrew, obviously, due to injury, underwent surgery, and is targeting International Fight Week, called out Arman Sarukian. We don't know if he'll get that one, but Dan Hooker is obviously there. Max Holloway, BMF champ, Dustin Poirier looking for his retirement fight.
Yeah.
Gaethje's booked, and then got Oliveira and Sarukuni who just fought. So maybe Dan Hooker, is that a name that would interest you? Do you see that as kind of a viable option?
Yeah, Dan Hooker would be ideal because he's ranked ahead of me, and if he's trying to come back International Fight Week, that would be a perfect time. I could fight May or June. Is it in June or is it July?
End of June, literally. So 28th,
That's
I think.
that's yeah, that's perfectly fine with me. I would be very happy with that setup if that's what they do.
And what do you kind of make of Dan Hooker's recent run? He's had some close fights, some great ones. He had a close fight with Gamrot. First off, what did you think of that fight with Gamrot? And did you think he was the rightful winner?
You know, it was such a close fight because if you look at that, it's that first round that's really the one you have to figure out who won the round, right? And Gamrot hurts him in the beginning of the round, and I would say Gamrot does quite a bit of damage, but then Dan Hooker somehow gets back up, and he starts really laying it on Gamrot. It's just because Dan Hooker finished stronger, I think judges gave him that round, and then round two was, I believe, was all Gamrot. He just kept getting takedowns and controlling, and then round three, Gamrot loses the round. Uh, Dan Hooker was able to apply a lot more pressure on him, so the fight could have gone either way. If you gave it to Gamrot, I wouldn't have said, oh no, that's the wrong call, or if they gave it to Dan, I couldn't really disagree. One way or another, I couldn't disagree because that first round was so close. They both hurt each other, so you could give it to anybody. And Dan Hooker did finish stronger, so I think that's probably why the judges leaned with him. But yeah, Dan Hooker would be the ideal matchup at this moment.
And how do you see a fight between you and Dan Hooker playing out?
I mean, I think the fight with Dan Hooker, I have better tools everywhere. I think I can outstrike him. I can out grapple him. I even think I can outdog him if it's a 3 round fight. I don't really I, I don't see where he would have an advantage over me.
I like that. I'll dog him because obviously that's kind of
That's
been
his
Dan
thing.
Hooker. Yeah, that's his,
Yeah.
that's his thing. And looking at the lightweight picture right now, Ilya Taporia vacated his featherweight title, moved up to 55. So what do you think of him doing that, first of all? And second of all, if he were to get an immediate title shot, would you approve of that, or what do you make of the situation?
Mm, you can't really disagree with it because he became champion. He defended his belt, and he's just like, hey, I'm too big. I don't want to make this weight cut anymore, so I want to fight 55. I wouldn't be against him fighting for 155, especially since the UFC said they're not gonna allow Arman to have his fight again for the title. So if Arman's not getting the title shot, Charles Oliveira, um, I understand he's supposed to be the number one contender, but um, I would say um, Ilias' credentials are better at this moment. He's riding quite the win streak. So I definitely wouldn't be like, oh, this is a mistake. They shouldn't have this fight. I think that the situation is this. I don't think Makachev really wants to fight another 45er. I think because he fought Volkanovski because he wanted to be pound for pound champion because at that time Volkanovski was. He beat Volkanovski, and so he's kind of over that. I would say he doesn't really want to fight another 145er. But the the difference now is Ilya's moving up, and he's an actual 55er. He's not going back down to 145. So I don't know. The fight happens. All it requires is Makachev agrees. If Makachev agrees to fight him, I think the fight happens.
Now, Ilya teased news but he made it seem like it's a curveball. I don't think him challenging Islam would necessarily be a curveball. So, what do you think he's talking about?
Hmm. It's either Charles or Armand, maybe, or I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know who else it could be. I I I I hope they give us an update on that soon because I'm excited to see what's going on too, especially since it's my division.
Not Connor, right? You don't? Do you believe Connor's ever going to come back?
I I don't. Listen, I don't want to poop on Connor. I think he could come back. I just don't think he can make 55. I don't when I look at Connor, I'm like, dang, bro, he's definitely put on a lot of muscle and making 55. I don't know if it's going to be that easy for him. You know, I'm walking around right now around 185, and to get to 55 is not an easy task for me. So he looks like he's near 200, if I'm not mistaken. So to get to 55, especially he doesn't look chunky. You know what I mean? He just looks like he put on a lot of muscle. So to get to 55, I think would be really hard for him. I think if he fights, it would be at 170. So him and Ilya at 170, that would be how I would see it. But I don't think that's the fight. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that's the fight.
I mean, I swear if Ilya's teasing something non-fight related, because didn't John Jones do that the like not too long ago? He's like, I have a big announcement, and everyone's like, okay, Aspinall, but then it was like something completely non-fight related.
Yeah, I mean that would be annoying, but we'll see because everybody's waiting to see what's going on. So to for you to do that, that would be annoying. But whatever. So we're all patiently waiting, I guess.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your opinion as well on Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler. Obviously, a very fun matchup. Surprised to see this pairing. I mean, Paddy teased it a while back. He's like, see you at the top. So I think he kind of gave it away a while ago. But what do you think of this matchup being put together and how it plays out?
I think for Patty, it's perfect because think about it. Chandler, he's whether you listen, you could be a fan of Chandler, you could whatever. You have to admit that he's what is it 2-4 in the UFC.
Yeah.
He's not he's just being honest. I don't think he's on his way to the top. He's kind of he's on a downward slope. So it's a perfect time for Patty to kind of meet him there, and I think he Patty has a very good chance of beating him because Charles was able to get a lot of takedowns on Chandler, which I'm being honest with you, I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought maybe one or two takedowns, but to be able to take him down every round, that was very surprising to me. So I think, Patty has a great chance. I think the fight will probably play out a lot standing, but if Patty engages in the grappling, he'll actually have lots of success. I think for whatever reason, Chandler is wrestling less than he used to, and wrestling isn't like striking, where you could just hit some mitts and then be back in shape for it. Wrestling, you got to drill, 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 and it's ugly and it's hard. And I think as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to do that. So I think that's my opinion. I think he's not wrestling as much, and that gives a really big opportunity for Patty to be able to win that fight.
I get it. And let's wrap up with this. So you said, Dan Hooker would be ideal. You'd accept Moicano if they threw it out there, but it would be a little bit disappointing because they, Dana and stuff teased something
Yeah.
bigger. But there are a lot of fights right now that could play out in different ways. Or would that be too long of a wait? Like relying on an outcome of one of these fights that we just talked about, would that be too long of a wait? Would you rather kind of focus on someone who doesn't have a fight book?
I mean, if they come out and say they're going to fight in June, like you said, I would be okay with waiting for that because I feel like it's going to be the same thing. If I fight Moicano or if I fight Dan Hooker, they're probably it's going to be probably June, right? So if one of these guys wants to go in June, that'd be great. And I think Max Holloway is going to fight Dustin Poirier. Is the rumor I heard? I don't know if you heard the same.
I mean, I feel like right now on social media, there's so many accounts throwing so many rumors that I don't even know what to believe anymore. It's worse than it's ever been. Like
Yeah,
with the rumors and stuff. So I don't know, but I mean that would be a great fight. That would make sense. So
the fight makes sense. I would say for I guess it makes sense for both of them because if it's a retirement fight for Dustin Poirier, he wants to go out on a win, and Max is a guy he's beat twice, so he probably thinks he can get that win. And then for Max, this puts him back in title contention. He could be one fight away from the title. So um that makes sense for both of them, I guess. I think that's the fight they're gonna make. I really do.
and the BMF title, I guess, helps with the promotional push. At least it gives Dustin something a little.
No,
I don't know.
no, wait. I thought. Oh, that's right. Because Max has it.
Yeah,
Max has it. I was like, wait. You're right. You're right. I
yeah.
totally forgot. That belt's been moving around. I keep forgetting.
Well, I'm saying that would be the incentive for Dustin, I guess.
That's true. He never got the BMF belt. That's true. I never thought about that. That's a great storyline. Now that you mention it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. There you go. You got your fight.
There you go. Beneil Dariush says so. That's a fight.
Yeah.
One last thing. Breaking down these fights with you, like I'm sure you see in the comments, a lot of people compliment you for how insightful you are, but we're yet to kind of see you on the desk or anything like that. Do you ever consider doing that stuff, starting your own podcast, any of that stuff?
You know, I would consider it. I remember doing it once with Submission Radio, like watching fights and just commentating. You have to understand it is harder work than actually training for me because as much as I love watching fights, I can't help but just constantly think what this person should be doing or that person should be doing and what's going on between the two of them. It's I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I get brain fatigue if that makes sense. So, working the desk would be something I would have to build up to. I would have to practice quite a bit to build that tolerance up and then go from there. Because I remember just doing 4 fights and I was completely exhausted. I was so tired I couldn't sleep that night. So I like the idea for maybe when I'm retired, but right now it would be too much on the plate.
No, look, it's exhausting. It absolutely is. But I feel weird saying that to a fighter. Is all I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
I
I
can't go
mean,
up to you. Yeah.
I'm sure you've done it many times. I'm sure you've sat down and you've done some kind of commentating on fights and whatever. It's so draining. People don't realize it because it's one thing to just watch it and just enjoy it, which I can't even do anymore, by the way. It sucks. Unless even if it's an old fight. I can't watch an old fight because I'm constantly thinking what they could have done better or what so it's a pain in the butt. So yeah, it really just goes back to building a tolerance to it. If I could build a tolerance to it and be able to do it without being completely exhausted, I would definitely put it on the table. But right now, it's something in the future maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Like
Yeah,
there's a post fighting plan.
yeah, maybe.
Well, Beneil, I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and hopefully we'll get some fight news from you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hopefully, I get something and we can talk more.
For sure. Thank you.